So, misconception. This is one that we heard from. Lots of children aren't very good at regulating themselves. I don't see how kindergarten children can learn to self-regulate.
Well, that's a misconception. What we did notice, so we worked with tons and tons of kids that age, and what we noticed was that when you think that a K age student can't self-regulate, 9 times out of 10 it's because you didn't notice how they were self-regulating. And part of the answer to this one is that yes, they do any child can learn how to self-regulate, even younger than K, but pay attention to the subtle ways that they are self-regulating that you may not notice.
And for me, the key takeaway here is going back to how are you defining self-regulation? Because usually when someone says that to me, and they mean it, and I have compassion around it, but really what they're saying is they can't manage their own behavior.
Yeah, they can't self-control. That's great.
Yeah, and that's not what self-regulation is. And we understand stress, and we're learning to manage energy and tension. And children can do it for themselves. They do it for themselves all the time, and sometimes it's in ways, as Stuart says, that you may not have realized that's what they're actually doing, but that's what they're doing. And so we help them develop it, but it absolutely can. And I often mention that a lot of this work came out of Stuart's work with kids on the autism spectrum at 3 years old.
Can I tell you about one kid we had?
Yes, you can.
This is great. So we had this one little guy, and his mom wanted him to go to music class because she thought that would be really socializing and he'd learn music. And so what happened was the little guy went to music class, and the music teacher was playing a guitar. And so the little guy got up and started wandering around the room. And the teacher got angry because he was disrupting the class, and mom went into pro-social distress that her little guy wasn't joining in and sitting quietly, but really what was happening was he was self-regulating. And one of the things that we lose sight of, especially with little children, is they find restraint a stress. And restraint isn't simply physical, right? Restraint can be sitting on the rug, sitting quietly. And so what he was really doing was he was reducing his stress by walking around the room. And unfortunately, things went from bad to worse because he discovered symbols in the corner. But that was also self-regulation too. If we had another. But it's very interesting when you do this particular misconception that you remember the Self-Reg mantra, ask yourself why and why now.
And you have to hear that it matters for behavior that you're dealing with at the end of the day. And here's why. If you view that little kid, that little one who's actually self-regulating, is dealing with what's overwhelming for him, and he doesn't know, you can't ask him, he won't explain that's what he's doing, but he's going and finding what he needs to do to find that balance. If you try to behavior manage him, and you're going to raise your own stress levels, his own stress levels, and you're going to have more of the behavior. If you look at it and say, okay, this maybe, I don't want to blame the symbols, but if I recognize he's doing this for a reason, and it's actually serving an underlying brain-body balance reason, how can I reframe that in my own understanding? I'll see him differently. And you come up with different solutions. So it's really way more hopeful. But you do have to start with some basic understandings of what it is you're trying to work on.
I have to share that.
I love when you do this.
The teacher then asked me, well, what am I supposed to do? So I said, well, you let him wander and hide the symbols.
Yeah. Sometimes it's as simple as that. So there you go. That's misconception.